In the bustling streets of Seoul, the vibrant districts of Suwon, or the familiar alleys of Gyeongdae, we pass by countless people every day. Amid the sounds of footsteps, car horns, and the murmur of crowds, hidden among ordinary passersby are those with intentions to shake our lives to the core. The protagonist of this story, broadcast journalist Min Soo, begins his tale in just such a moment. One autumn day, with a chilly wind blowing, Min Soo dives into an undercover investigation project for a broadcasting company. In the goal to uncover the truth behind a cult operating on the streets. Unlike the typical religious groups we imagine, they didn't use flashy flyers or open proselytizing it. Instead, they disguised themselves as small, innocent-looking young women in neat clothing with large backpacks, cleverly breaking down people's defenses. Their smiles were warm, but behind them lurked sharp blades. Min Soo undergoes a month of meticulous training for the undercover operation. This training went beyond just informing about the cult's existence. It detailed who they target, how to approach them, and even what behaviors could avoid raising suspicion. For example, they preyed not on busy office workers in suits, but on college students in hoodies and jeans, staring blankly at their phones while walking. The reason was simple. People who don't look busy and seem pure were their ideal prey. The core of the training was natural acting. For instance, if someone asked, "Where's exit 5?" you had to respond, "Oh, I'm new to this era too," while pulling out your phone to check a map. If you immediately said, "It's over there," the target would judge you as familiar with the area and avoid approaching. This small act was the first step in their psychological trap. Min Soo practiced dozens of times in front of a mirror to perfect his awkward expression and speech. Min Soo started his investigation in Suwon's bustling area. To look like a college student, he dressed in a hoodie and ripped jeans, wore earphones, and walked slowly while looking at his phone. On a street where the autumn sun shone harshly, amid the sounds of footsteps, his heart trembled slightly. After days of waiting, they finally approached. A young woman in a neat blouse with a large backpack came up and asked in a soft voice, "Excuse me, where's exit 3?" An ordinary question, an ordinary smile. But Min Soo sensed the hidden intent behind that smile. "Oh, I'm not sure either. Hold on, let me check the map." Min Soo deliberately acted a bit flustered, pulling out his phone to pretend to search. His hands shook, but he maintained the awkward demeanor as trained to put her at ease. Then, the woman suddenly shifted her attitude, flashing a warm smile. "Wow, you're so kind. If you have time, how about a cup of coffee?" Her voice was as natural as an old friend's, but Min Soo knew this was the first temptation straight from their manual. A chill ran down his spine. They moved to a cafe and sat at a small table, engaging in light, everyday conversation. The cafe was filled with the aroma of coffee and low chatter. But to Min Soo's ears, each of her questions felt like a sharp probe. "How are your parents doing? What have you been up to lately?" Ordinary questions flowed, but Min Soo noticed she was gathering information about him. He fabricated that he was a college student living independently from his parents with some financial struggles. This fake info made him seem like the perfect prey to them. As they parted, the woman suggested exchanging phone numbers with a soft smile. "If anything comes up, call me. I'll help you." Her words were warm, but Min Soo knew the told intent hidden behind them. The first contact ended successfully, and he prepared for the group's next stage. As he left the cafe, he glanced back. She was still smiling, but her eyes were somehow eerie. A few days later, a text arrived on Min Soo's phone. "How are you? Let's meet again if you have time. The moment he read it, his heart pounded again. For the second meeting, he headed back to the cafe. This time, the atmosphere was subtly different. The woman greeted him with a slightly stiff expression and asked, "Have you been going through something tough lately?" Her voice was still soft, but her eyes held a calculating gleam. Minsu acted as per the manual, pretending to have some worries to draw out their response. Well, lately things have been a bit hard." He trailed off deliberately, waiting for her next move. Then she cautiously said, "Actually, I know someone. He's truly amazing. He could help someone like you a lot." She didn't go into specifics, but invited Minsu to a certain place. It's just a casual chat, no pressure. Minsu sensed this invitation was far from a simple coffee meetup. His palms grew sweaty, and his heart raced faster. He checked his hidden camera and recorder, ensuring 2 security personnel from the station were nearby on standby. Then he headed to the address they provided, a multi-family house on the 2nd floor, looking ordinary from the outside. But standing at the door, a shiver ran down his spine. Faint chanting sounds from beyond the door, and an inexplicable unease. He steadied his breath and knocked. As the door opened, a pungent incense smell pierced Minsu's nose. The sharp scent invaded his lungs with every breath, clouding his mind. The room was dimly lit. Candles flickered on the walls, casting uneasy shadows. And in the center was a small altar with Buddha-like statues and strange decorations. Minsu instinctively wanted to step back, but this was the start of the undercover investigation, so he entered tensely. A man in his 50s greeted him with a heavy voice. "Come in." The woman introduced Minsu to him and quietly stepped back. "This person will help you." The man sat Minsu on an old sofa and began asking for his birth details for fortune-telling. Sajupala is a traditional Eastern method of divining fate based on birth date. Minsu answered with prepared fake info. But the man, using information from the first meeting, spoke as if he saw through his life. "Your ancestors' karma is piled up. That's why things aren't going well for you," the man logically explained, as if he could solve my problems based on the fake stories I told the woman. As the conversation went on, the heavy air in the room, the flickering candles, and the man's sharp gaze increasingly tensed Minsu. Then, the man made a proposal. "If you perform a ritual, everything will resolve. But you need to show sincerity." Suddenly, he demanded Minsu do 108 bows. Rituals traditionally involve offering food to ancestors and praying. But this was different. "This is for you. You must show devotion to appease the ancestors." The man's voice was firm, with a threatening undertone. Minsu steadied his breath and began the 108 bows. Bowing 108 times is an extremely grueling task. Mewing on the cold wooden floor, bending and rising repeatedly. 1, 2, 3. With each count, the incense smell stabbed his nose more intensely, and the constant chanting shook his mind. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and his legs trembled. Past 50, his breathing grew ragged, and his heart felt like it would burst. This wasn't just a ritual. It was a calculated design to make his mind foggy and confused. Even knowing it all, I thought dazed. After finishing the 108 bows, Minsu collapsed onto the sofa, gasping. His head was blank, and all sounds in the room seemed distant. It was so exhausting. Confinement and psychological manipulation, the peak of terror. After the 108 bows, the man's expression suddenly hardened. He snapped. You didn't show enough sincerity, so the ancestors are angry. His voice was sharp, his eyes piercing Min-soo. The door slammed shut and locked, and two burly men entered the room. Their shadows loomed on the walls, pressuring Min-soo, who instinctively shrank back. What are you doing? His voice trembled. But instead of answering, they dragged him to a small room. The door closed and the narrow room was filled with stifling air. Windows were covered with thick curtains and a faint bulb flickered, casting anxious light. Chanting echoed endlessly from beyond the walls, hammering into Min-soo's mind like a mallet. You know what you did wrong, right? One man asked in a low, threatening voice. Min-soo gritted his teeth and nodded. They locked him up for 2 hours. He knew it was all an act, but his heart pounded and his palms sweated uncontrollably. The chanting blurred his thoughts, and the incense tightened his lungs with every breath. He tried to steady his breathing, but fatigue crushed him alongside the fear. Eventually, he feigned a slapping voice. I was wrong, and they opened the door. At that moment, the 50s man suddenly turned affectionate, hugging Min-soo. We're doing this to help you. It's all necessary, sorry. His embrace was warm, but Min-soo knew even that was part of the psychological plan. This extreme manipulation exhausts and confuses people while making them dependent on the abuser. Min-soo ate rice with trembling hands while conversing in their house. The room was still heavy with incense and the food on the table was tasteless, but he forced it down. David turned his phone and said, Call if anything happens before letting him go. But as he stepped out, Min-soo sent the eyes on his back. Exiting the alley, he signaled the security team and barely shook off the tail with their help. On the bus ride away, he glanced out the window. In the dark alley, a shadow seemed to move, but he couldn't be sure. A few days later, they contacted him again. Things still aren't resolved, right? They urged him back to the house under the pretext of performing the ritual with proper sincerity. This time, they blatantly demanded money. You eat 5 million won for the ritual. When Min-soo resisted saying he had no money, they suggested a loan. We'll cover 1 million, borrow the rest. Their voices were soft, but their eyes gleamed with greed. Min-soo realized their plan to trap victims with high-interest loans. Min-soo knew this was the decisive moment for the investigation. He followed to a nearby loan office, recording their illegal acts with hidden camera and recorder. The office was in a shabby commercial building, filled with dusty desks and piles of documents, but the conversations there were ruthless. Sign here, it'll be quick. The employee's tone was mechanical, and Min-soo stalled for time by delaying the signature. Eventually, he left the office and immediately reported to the police. However, they operated as a cell organization, so only small fry were caught, and the higher-ups escaped. They moved offices frequently, erasing traces, a meticulous setup. Min-soo's undercover investigation went beyond a simple broadcast project, starkly revealing the reality of crimes happening around us. This cult wore the guise of religion, but their actions were organized crimes involving psychological manipulation, illegal confinement, fraud, and inducing high-interest loans. This case exemplifies the increasingly kind suspect the intent behind that smile. Your vigilant is your strongest weapon. We are a good prison. One Shonda. If you enjoy this, please subscribe and like. It means a lot to me.